Happy Friday, everyone. New location again, week 3. This is in my home this time though, so which is probably a more consistent location that I will be in. Gonna take a little bit different format this week. I want to be more succinct with these, so I do have them a little bit more scripted this time around, and we'll see how that goes overall. So, as updates go, today's Friday, July 29th. This is episode 3 of This Business of Therapy. Official title now. We'll see how that goes. So, a couple of thoughts for me this week as I'm kind of summarizing the work week and just everything business-wise that was occurring for me this week for the most part. The first piece really being the importance of prioritizing the right things. So coming off of being out of town for about 2 weeks in a row. There were a couple days in there where I was home, but for the most part, gone for a lot of it and just coming back for some clinical work and then leaving again. Not quite vacation completely, kind of, but not with the intention of just going on vacation. So regardless, being able to come back, arriving Monday, driving straight to the office, but having some moments beforehand of what's the priority for this week. And that's really just a focal reminder for me of the importance of prioritizing the right things, which for me, work is high on that list, family is high on that list, faith is high on that list. So in a given week, if I do anything, it's going to be those 3 things. Everything else is extra. And for me, making sure that it's known in the week as I head into it, really. So I know in advance, no extra time just to hang out or chill. You're just kind of working, catching up on some stuff. And I think knowing that sets a really good standard for what to expect. It's kind of like if you're, I think about being a kid, maybe being hopeful that you'll get like ice cream at the end of a day, but you haven't really asked for it and you're just kind of hoping for it. You have the anticipation, and if you get it, great, and if you don't, you'll feel bad. You're kind of storing up the energy to get it. Whereas if you go into the evening knowing, I'm not getting it, and then if it happens to happen, you feel great. So, and most nights you won't get it, and that was this kind of week. I'm not going to get a lot of extra downtime, and that's fine. Just going in knowing that is kind of relaxing in its own right, and works just fine for me. So I'm content enough with that. So anyway, the other piece was incentives. Thinking about the utility of incentives in a work setting, in a professional setting, and something that I could honestly elaborate a lot more on in a Monday video that I do, and kind of how mental health and psychology is connected with incentivizing people to do things. So kind of one of the thoughts I was sitting with was that there are things that people don't want to do but are willing to do, and things that people are willing to do but aren't prioritizing. So one example is we're willing to pay more on rent if your rent goes up. For instance, for everyone who rents their home or apartment, you might be willing to pay more rent, but you do not want to. So now that might not necessarily be an incentive in and of itself, but you might be incentivized by not wanting to move or by liking where you're at. So I'm going to pay more, but I do not want to. The other is things that you are willing to do, but you're not prioritizing. So this is something that's always at the back of our to-do list. It never actually needs done, but you want it done. And if you had the right push, you'd get it done. So for some people, that's tidying up their bedroom. If you have people coming over, your home's a little bit dirty and you don't need to tidy up, but oh no, there's people coming over, so you're going to do it because it's been incentivized. It's now a priority. Stuff like that. So reflecting on that after the training I held last week, we were trying to get people to respond to a post-training survey. Primarily so that way I can improve these trainings over time and make them better and better. And one of the most helpful ways of doing that is when people tell me their experience, which isn't always a given. There's maybe some generic like niceties, but trying to get raw responses and real criticisms if they're there, and get people to be really honest about what was helpful and open about that. So trying to figure out what's the best way to get responses. And one of the things that we figured out, and there's lots of places you can go to, find free resources on surveys and questionnaires. Like, that's just an abundantly talked about and researched area, and there's a lot of human psychology study for that. But one of the things we settled on was $20 gift card to Amazon, and ended up getting an 88.89% response rate for the survey, which is fantastic. Obviously I would love higher, but I'm pretty content with that, especially since it was through email, which, as I understand, is a very low response rate typically. So we're pretty happy about that. Just doing and it was a giveaway. It wasn't that everyone got it. It was entered into a giveaway. So I think one of the things that helps with this is the relational dynamic of giving that training at a practice that I partner with. So we know everyone there. It's not just anonymous people. And I think the more that you expand that out, the less likely that incentive will work. Although I'm the type of personality to fill out a survey oftentimes for a chance of a reward. So I think for some people it will, others it won't. So yeah, I'm pretty satisfied with that. And it just made me think more about, like I said before, something I can discuss in a Monday video, but just kind of the ethics around incentivizing. And one of the interesting things that was going through my mind was the IRB at most universities. So I did my undergrad, half of it, at University of Missouri, Kansas City. Did 2 years of community college first, and then finished out there. And I can't remember the class. I assume it was a research-based class, but we had some fantastic professors there. And one of the things we talked about was the IRB, which stands for the Institutional Review Board. And as I understand, every college that does research has one, and they are assigned as, I believe they don't get paid, and I actually think they're required to have a couple different backgrounds, including like a religious person on the board and stuff like that. And what they're doing is they're assessing the research requests that come in for a lot of different things, but one of them is their ethics. Is this an appropriate thing to do to other humans in research? Some of that stuff's easy to figure out, but some stuff isn't. And like, is this appropriate to do this to a person? And one of the interesting things about it is the incentive to do the research ethically sound or not? So, for instance, it would not be ethically sound if you were wanting to do a study that involved the participants in any way being naked, or what you would consider typically covered parts having to be exposed for research. So a lot of people wouldn't necessarily want to do that. Some people wouldn't care, but other people, there might be some moral things where they're like, well, I don't really want to, but maybe for the sake of medical, it's fine, and I don't know what the research is offering. So if you say, hey, we're offering $1 million to someone, to anyone who does this, any of our participants, so that would very, very likely be turned down as unethical, because the value of that is so high that people will be tempted to violate their morals and values, because it's such a big trade-off that people will consider doing something that they shouldn't. Now, that's not to say people should or shouldn't participate in a study like that, but if you're on the fence and you're not sure if you should, the point of this is that the incentive shouldn't be so outrageous that you just are like, forget it, I'm going for it for that number. It should be more something like, we said, a gift card. So a study where someone needs to be naked in any capacity, you might say a couple $100. Most people aren't going to sell their soul, so to speak, for a couple $100 in that context. Plenty of people will. But the idea is, generally speaking, that's not enough to make someone turn on their beliefs and values. So you want the research to be understood, and you want the incentive to be in proper relation to the research being done. So it's just a fascinating thing to consider of what kind of pressure or incentives are to be put on people to get them to do things. It's the, I don't think it's really an adage, but I've heard people talk about it in a different way. If there's something that you don't want to do, but you will do it for a price, then you are for sale in that capacity. So if someone says, I'll stick to the naked theme, I guess. If someone says that they're a very loyal partner and they would never cheat on their partner, and there's YouTube videos where people get asked in the streets like questions like this, and they're quite telling. Because if if someone says, I'll never cheat on my partner, and they mean it, that means there's no way that they would cheat. It will not happen. If someone says, well, I was offered $1 million and we can use that money for all this stuff, and so yeah, I slept with that person for $1 million, then one, you are lying. You are willing to, if the situation is right, to cheat. And two, that means your faithfulness to your partner has a price tag of $1 million. Kind of see how that plays out. So this is really interesting as a concept to think about too. I'm getting way into concepts for a different video at this point, but I just think it's worth reflecting in business of how you encourage people to do or not do things based on how you attach values related to resources that they either have or need. Phenomenal thing to think about. It's just very interesting to me. I'm not going to linger on it for too much longer, but incentives and really the last piece there for the training is getting to follow up with the actual survey responses. So the 88.89 response rate. Now, probably Sunday or Monday, I'm going to go and review those and look at the answers that people gave and respond to them and see what needs to be adjusted. So for me, it's trying to ask the least amount of questions with the shortest answers, which glean the largest amount of useful data. And that excites me a lot. So refining that process to just completely maximize it for everyone involved and make it quicker and easier for everyone to answer and for me to read it and get feedback, and good feedback, not generic questions, but thoughtful ones. So I'm sure I'll have to refine that a lot, but I'm excited for that. That's a fun thing to research and mess with for me. And then really what I think will be kind of closing thoughts were two more thoughts, I guess. Trainings. I was excited to have a conversation with the person I partner with at my practice for the training we did, and it seems like there's a lot of opportunity there to expand that out into a 3-hour ethics CEU for mental health practitioners, therapists, and that's going to be worked on to see if that is doable and can be done well. And for me, doing things well is important. I just don't want to make something for the sake of making something. So I already know the training is useful, but can it be expanded to properly fit criteria for required trainings for the people? I think it can. So that'll be something, if it launches, I'll talk about more here and probably address ways to engage with it for anyone out there who wants to, because it's a lot of fun to do, and I'd love to expand it and be able to do more with it. So there will be more updates to come on that. And then financial planning, as I'm getting ready for the next training, which will be next month. One of the things that I am focusing a lot on is financial planning for business owners, both on a business and personal setting. I really don't think those things can be separated. It's a perspective of how you treat money. There's going to be some separation of that, keeping business mind over here, personal mind over here. But at the end of the day, it's all money. How you handle money, your relationship with it, if it's based on fear, if it's based on joy, abundance, scarcity. If it's anything in one category, personal or business, it's probably going to bleed into the next one. So that's kind of part of what I'm looking at into this next training, is a structure for that. And it's something that, as I'm working on already, it's bigger than not that I want it to be. These trainings go for 45 minutes for me, and they can go much longer. And I think that's the issue for me, is creating consolidation enough for these that they fit into an appropriate framework that is digestible in 45 minutes, but also have enough depth that they can be expanded into a couple hours. And I think my issue is that they start a couple hours long and they need to be condensed into quick enough where there's still space for questions, and also that I'm not just fire hosing information on people. So there's a balance there, and each training gets approached a little bit different for me, but it's one that I'm excited about working on. There's a lot of hours ahead getting that ready, but it's good. I'm super excited, and I'm sure I'll talk more about that here as well. So I think, there is one more thing. So the last thing was today, like a couple of minutes ago, finalizing some purchases on websites for me. So that's a very loose topic that I won't go into too much until probably next week or the week after, but some new website launches coming for me, which I'm really excited about. I love working on websites. That's not, a lot of people hate that so much, but I like the building part. Some of the there's a couple logistical pieces that aren't for me, but for the most part, I enjoy it a lot, and it's not something I am eager to outsource, though I might do that eventually. So that's the week. That's the updates on business. I'm excited to see how a lot of these kind of start to unfold over the next week. I imagine a lot of updates next Friday are going to be expansions of this conversation, but we'll see. There might be more. So I'm going to leave it at that. Not a super long video, but felt dense and concise, so we'll probably keep this structure in the future. If you're interested in business consulting at all, or any type of personal coaching regarding personal growth and development, you can reach out to me at the email in the description. I love working with people. I love people who are wanting to get their company really from that startup to six-figure range. It's a lot of fun for me. I like it a lot. So if you're interested in that, reach out to me. Other than that, I'm going to look forward to talking to everyone next Friday. Thanks, y'all.